Hello everyone, so we're going to be checking out this Sony HDR AS30V. Now this is an action camera from Sony, released in about 2014, designed really to compete with the GoPro Hero 3. Now if we take a look around the device, we have the LCD screen which displays some information, previous next buttons, the actual camera lens itself. This is a 170 degree lens on a 11.9 megapixel camera. On this side is not much of anything, and on the back here we have this door, which we have the enter/record button, and if we open this up like that, we can see the battery and the SD card. Now this will take either a micro SD card or a Sony M2 card. Now if we look under this little door at the bottom here, we have a Sony multi-port, which is basically just micro USB, micro HDMI, some weird proprietary connection, no one knows what it really does, and a microphone socket. Now one thing that's clearly missing here is a screen to actually see what you're doing. Now Sony did sell a dedicated wireless screen with this so you can see what you were doing, but really it was intended to work with the app. But if we have a look through this UI, we have different modes. So we have video mode at the bottom, photo mode, interval mode, which basically just takes photos every however long, and setup, play, power off. That's it. So if we go into setup, we can see settings for the video. This will record anywhere from 1080p 60 all the way down to 480p 30, which will allow it to record for a couple of days. Now we have steady shot. Now this doesn't actually have any optical image stabilization. Instead it just uses that super wide 170 degree lens and crops it down to 120 degrees to give it some room to stabilize. And that's how we actually get stabilization. So if you turn steady shot on, it will instantly decrease the camera to only 120 degrees. Now if we go back to the menus, a few other interesting things in here. So we have the video settings where you can set the video. Also have steady shot, angle, so you can just set the camera to shoot 120 degrees for like the photo mode. We can also flip it. Scene, which I don't really know what it does. I think it's just for if you're underwater. Also have the interval for the intervalometer or time lapse mode. You can set it anywhere from 5 to 1 minute. You also have Wi-Fi, which is how you're supposed to connect to this for the app, etc. Also, it does have GPS, which is nice for something this cheap. It does have a dedicated GPS built in, so it can figure out where you are. You also have airplane mode, auto off, beeper, date, whatever. Also, you can turn off USB power, so it won't charge itself from the USB port. And that's about all that's interesting in here. Now that we're in video mode, we can just press the record button, and it will start filming video. And as you can see, the clock is going up here. And you can just point this at whatever you want to film and record some nice video. Photo mode is similar. You just need to press the button on the back and it will take a photo. Like so. Interval mode is also very similar. You just wait for it to go through and you press start. The steady shot on this will try and keep the photos in a similar position, which is a lot like the hyperlapse mode on phones or modern action cameras. You can just press it in to stop it, and that's about it. Playback mode, all that does is just play the video through the HDMI port, or maybe through composite if you can find a cable for this connector here. Now for the battery, this thing actually uses the Sony NP-BX1 battery, which has been used in Sony cameras forever really. They still actually use these in some of their modern cameras like the ZVs and the RX100 still use these batteries. So it's really nice for Sony to keep using the same battery. And you can still buy these, buy chargers, whatever for them. This is actually an original one that came with this camera and it still holds a good charge. Officially it will support up to 64GB micro SD cards, but in the real world, you can put anything up to a 256GB card in it and it will still work. Now let's have a look at the app. Now, to try out the app on this, all you have to do is download the IEM app from the App Store or whatever. Open it. I'm using my Sony Xperia 1 Mark IV, as it's a Sony, and they tend to work a little bit better with these, but it will work on any phone, including iPhones, I believe. Now to add it, the easiest way is to just go add camera. I don't have any of these expensive models. And the easiest way is to use NFC, because this camera has NFC on it. So all we have to do is bring the phone up to it. Hopefully it will pick it up. Like so. And it will connect. And as you can see, we're connected. And now we can see a view of what the camera sees on the smartphone. Like that. Now the phone does give you some control over the camera. You can change mode, so you can go into menu and you can change like the recording quality to whatever you want. You can also change the mode itself, so you can go into like time-lapse mode or just photo mode. And depending on the mode, you will get a different quality from the camera. Now if you're in photo mode or whatever, you can just hit the button to take a picture. And it will download it to the device because it's a Sony IEM app and that's just what it does. And it works, it's really useful having this because now you can see what the camera sees from your phone. So you can stick this in the dishwasher or an engine or whatever and see what's making that noise or fix it. The quality on this is decent. It looks roughly 1080p from what I can tell, but streaming over, which is plenty for this sort of application. Overall, the connection is really reliable and very seamless. You seem to get at least 30 FPS all the time, and it's nice and smooth. If only they could get this technology in their A7 series. The buttons on the back of the cameras do still work for changing the mode or whatever. You can still go into here and it will just change it on the app. You can also still just press the button on the camera to take a picture. Like so. Sony do sell a dedicated accessory for doing this with the phone, but it's expensive and they're somewhat rare on eBay. Now let's start by having a look at the photo mode. This is the only mode that makes use of the 11.9 megapixel camera, but it might as well only shoot in 2 megapixel because the photos are very grainy, don't have much detail, and just don't look that good. The 170 degrees can be nice because it's wider than the lens on any phone, but it doesn't really seem that useful. Now moving on to the time-lapse mode. This shoots photos in 1920 by 1080 at the interval you set. These look about as good as the normal photo mode, except the camera just takes a lot of them, it saves a lot of storage. It can run in this time-lapse mode for about 2.5 hours on a normal battery. In both photo and the time-lapse mode you can shoot in either 120 or 170 degrees. Now onto the video. The camera can record video in either 170 degree or 120 degree angle with stay shot on or off. And overall the video looks okay. It looks worse than an iPhone 4S, but I mean this is a real budget action camera from 2014, so what do you expect? There's a significant fisheye effect, but the focus is normally sharp and accurate. The video itself has some nice processing, colours look nice, images bright and vibrant, but sometimes it can expose on the wrong things. It can record at 1080p 30 for about an hour and a half. It can only record in up to 4GB files, and it will make a new video recording file after that on your SD card. Turning on steady shot, things do get a little bit better, but as we can see in the car test, things are still shaky and a little bit all over the place. But it definitely looks better than no stabilisation, and for the price you can't really complain. Now for the audio in the video mode, this camera has 2 mics for a stereo setup, and you've been listening to it this whole time. Fortunately there is no dedicated audio recorder mode, but when you're recording in 480p video it can record for so long it doesn't really matter anyway. On the bottom, the microphone socket works exactly how you expect, except it's only mono. Now on to the other ports. The USB port works exactly how you expect it to and charges the camera. It can charge up to 1 amp, and it can also run the camera with no battery installed. HDMI port also works well. When you're recording video or just having it sit there, it will display what the camera sees out the HDMI port. It's really nice to see HDMI on such a budget model. Anyways, that's the Sony AS30V. If enough people watch this, I might review the FDR X1000V next.